My name is Thomas Tom Grady, and in a warm courtroom that smelled like paper and coffee, I slid a certified deed across the rail, heard the clerk read book and page, and watched my son turn the color of drywall. People held their breath. I didn't. I'd waited 2 winters for a rubber stamp. It didn't begin in court. It began on Cedar Street in Janesville, Wisconsin, the week the city was late clearing leaf piles. I salted the porch steps with a bag patched by duct tape. The snowblower slept under a blue tarp. The mail came late. The lid clacked. The carrier's boots squeaked on salt. At the kitchen table, I opened a stiff envelope with a butter knife, summons and complaint. Plaintiff, my son Kyle. Claim give him title to 412 Cedar Street, the place I started framing in '85 when Patty warmed the caulk gun with a hairdryer so I could keep working. I read it twice. Promise Reliance Equity title words for lawyers, not roofs. I called a number I saved for bad weather, Valerie Cho, attorney, 2nd floor office over a dentist. Mr. Grady, she said on the second ring. Bring everything. Titles, taxes, insurance. Any clinic notes. Don't text your son. Don't argue. Start a notebook. Okay, I said. That night I made chili and ate at the sink. The radiator ticked. I opened a yellow pad and wrote certified mail, 10:17 a.m. carrier initials, RM green knit hat. When something matters, you write it down. On a pole line, in court, same rule. If Kyle had asked me straight, I might have told him what I'd done after a ladder fall 2 years earlier. A clinic volunteer said, "Estate tune-up, Mr. Grady." I went to the Rock County Register of Deeds with a form of transfer on death deed. Patty was gone. I named Emma my granddaughter beneficiary, paid the fee. The clerk stamped it and read the instrument number out loud. I left with a steadier heart. I didn't tell Kyle, avoiding fights that rot families. Thanksgiving came loud. St. Luke's Church Hall, paper plates, green bean casserole, football on a muted TV. Kyle drifted in late with Ashley recording. Dad say something about the house, he joked. I carved turkey and said the sentence old men use to keep a table peaceful. You'll have your turn with the place one day. Someone laughed. A kid dropped a roll. That's what's on the video. A room, not a contract. A week after the summons, Kyle showed up with a document he'd printed at work. Quitclaim, he said. We can avoid the mess. Put it in writing, I said, and took it under the porch light. Snow hung in the air. I read, folded it hard, and put it back in his hand. I'll see you in court, I said, and shut the door easy. Valerie's office smelled like copier toner and peppermint tea. Plain suit hair clipped back. She spread my stack like a map. We'll need certified copies of the TOD deed, she said, and anything from Thanksgiving. Did anyone record? Church volunteer films the buffet every year, I said. Good, she said. Here's our plan. We stay boring and exact. No gossip. The record will do the talking. The record is dull until it isn't. Depositions got scheduled. Across the street, the Gleasons told folks they'd heard me promise. Mrs. Ortiz said she believed I meant it. I shoveled at dawn-knocked icicles with a broom handle, drove Emma to school when her car wouldn't start. She asked if I needed anything. Apples, I said. The kind that snap. On Friday, I went to the Register of Deeds like a man going for a bolt that fits right the first time. The lobby bell rang. A clerk in a wool scarf pulled the book and page and made a certified copy with a blue ribbon stapled through the corner. The raised seal took both hands. She read the instrument number out loud. Paper felt heavier with a voice on it. I took the copy to Hazel's Diner and set it face down by the syrup. Short stack, black coffee. A farmer talked diesel on a stool. The window fogged where the heater breathed. I thought about Kyle at 10 torn knee in his jeans running a soccer field and laughing when he fell. Somewhere along the years, he learned shortcuts. I learned to outlast weather. We had one quiet day before court. I changed the furnace filter, checked smoke alarms, oiled the hinges until the squeak turned into a sigh. Before bed, I pulled the file taxes insurance certified TOD deed, the Thanksgiving clip Valerie had found. I set it by the coat I'd wear before Judge Ruth Ellison. Slept 5 hours, woke twice. Counted breaths like you do in a bucket truck when the wind sways. You wait for your window. Morning was clear and brittle. Frost filmed the windshield. I scraped with an old library card, watched sun find the courthouse dome, and thought about small, honest things that keep a life upright. Salt filters papers, in order the name of the notary who watched your pen. I drove slow down Cedar, turned left, and parked by a meter with 2 quarters from a coffee can. Inside the building smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. The deputy pointed us to the benches. Emma sat second row, hands folded. Kyle didn't look at me. Ashley kept her phone down. When the clerk called our case and the judge said good morning, in a voice that settled the air, I felt the certified copy in my coat like a second heart. I wasn't nervous, just ready. That's where this part begins, a father on a wooden bench, a son at council table, a town listening, because towns do. I thought about 412 Cedar Patty, steaming wallpaper, me running wire on a ladder, Emma's pencil marks on the kitchen doorway. I don't own much that interests a thief, but I have paper that bears weight, and I know what a promise is and isn't. Counsel, the judge said, appearances for the record. The record, always the record. Keene said his name first, voice smooth and sure. Valerie said hers next, clipped and even. I stood when she touched my sleeve. The clerk swore us in. The judge asked if we preferred a jury. Keene glanced at his client and said, "Bench, Your Honor." Valerie nodded. I watched the judge write a date the way a lineman watches a voltmeter, numbers you respect. Discovery deadlines are on the scheduling order, Judge Ellison said. Depositions by the end of the month. Exhibits marked and exchanged 1 week prior. Phones off. No contact between parties outside counsel. She looked at me then, at Kyle, like a parent separating brothers in a back seat. If either of you approaches the other outside counsel, I will hear about it. We stepped out to the hallway that smelled like winter coats and stale coffee. Kyle didn't look up from his phone. Ashley raised hers for a second, then thought better of it. Valerie leaned close. "We'll keep this boring," she said. "Boring is how we win." On the street, salt crunched under my boots. I fed the meter a second quarter, then turned my face into the wind and let it clear the courtroom air. The sky over Janesville was a thin sheet of tin. I drove home the long way, past the plant that shut down past Hazel's Diner, where the steam on the glass wrote its own weather. At the kitchen table, I opened the notebook and wrote the date time and what the judge had said. I taped the scheduling order inside the cover. I called my insurance agent to request a copy of the declarations page. I pulled tax receipts from a file Patty had labeled years ago in her teacher's careful hand. I wrote down the instrument number from the transfer on death deed so I could say it without looking. I said it out loud anyway until it sat right in the mouth. By supper, the street had that early dark that shows up after daylight saving time. I boiled noodles, ate with a spoon, washed the pot, dried it, and put it back where it belongs. Order is a habit. In line work and in court, order is what keeps people alive. The next day, the pressure started. Gleason wandered over as I shoveled the brim of his cap, shiny with old sweat. "Heard you promised the house, Tom," he said, soft like a favor. I said words at a noisy table, I answered. "A promise is a tool. It has weight. You don't wave it around." He scuffed his boot. "Kyle's a good boy," he said. "He's 35, I said. "He says a lot." Ashley posted a photo from Thanksgiving me, carving her caption neat and sweet like a bow tied too tight. Big promises, big hearts. Under it, comments from people who hadn't washed our dishes, wrote sentences about family honor. I put my phone face down, found a deck screw on the counter, and twirled it until the threads felt familiar. I have used the same size for 3 decades. It has never lied to me. Valerie called. Opposing counsel served interrogatories. "Bring them by. We'll answer narrowly." I drove to her office over the dentist and sat under a watercolor of cows. She flipped the pages with a pencil and crossed out phrases the way you clip dead twigs off a tree. "Do not guess," she said. "When you don't recall, you don't recall. That's not a crime. It's a fact. When you know because you can point to paper." "What do they want?" I asked. "Phone records, bank records, your medical notes," she said. "They want to turn you into a story. We will make you into dates." At home, I cleared a spot on the dining table and made 2 stacks, one for what lives at the Register of Deeds forever, one for what I pay annually, tax, insurance, utilities. I sharpened a pencil and wrote labels in block letters. Emma texted that she got a 29 on her ACT English. I told her I'd bring a pie. She wrote back a single word, apple. A day later, Kyle stopped by with his hands in his coat pockets like a boy caught stealing gum. Snow spit in the air, a dime-sized pattern on his shoulders. "We don't need to make a mess of this," he said, looking at the shrubs instead of me. "Ashley doesn't like court. It's ugly." "Court is where ugly goes to be named," I said. He flinched. "You said it at Thanksgiving." I said a sentence to keep the peace. I never promised title. I never transferred title. I pay taxes. I fix the roof. I scrape the steps. You want it. That doesn't make it yours. He nodded like he understood something he didn't like. You're stubborn. I'm exact, I said and shut the door with a latch sound that feels like winter. Valerie scheduled depositions. We'll take Kyle first, then Ashley, then the Gleasons, she said. I'll be friendly. Friendly makes people talk. She slid me a list, dates, times, addresses. Do you have any clip from Thanksgiving? The church volunteer, I said. He films for the shut-ins. Find him, she said. I found Pastor Jim in the church office with paper angels taped to the glass. He scrolled a phone with thick fingers and found the clipped green bean casserole plastic forks, a football announcer's voice buried under laughter. My voice showed up like a nail under paint. You'll have your turn with the place one day. I heard it the way a judge would a phrase said to keep grace moving down a table. Pastor sent it to Valerie. Truth sounds different when you listen for it, he said and patted my shoulder once like a benediction with work boots on. At the Register of Deeds, the lobby bell rang, and the clerk in the wool scarf knew me by the second time. You want another certified copy, she asked. Always, I said. She pulled the book, folded the paper, like you fold a map, pressed the raised seal until it kissed. Read that instrument number out loud for me, I said. She smiled and did. I repeated it after her. It felt like a combination I'd never forget. I carried that copy to Hazel's and set it by my coffee. Steam fogged my glasses. A kid behind the counter dropped a spoon and it sang on the tile. A farmer at the end said something about a sick calf. The Packers' schedule on the wall had 3 circles in red. This is how life looks when you're being sued the same as before, but with a page in your pocket that makes the air sit different in your lungs. That night, I answered interrogatories in Valerie's office. State with specificity each alleged promise she read and looked at me. I didn't promise title, I said. Write that, she said. She wrote, identify all persons present when you allegedly promised the house. A roomful, I said. Write that, she said, and then wrote the 3 names she knew would show up. Describe all steps taken to transfer any interest. None, I said, and tapped the triangle of paper clips at the edge of her desk. We finished near dark. On the stairs, my knees argued with me, a dull ache that meant I'd been sitting too long. Outside, the wind had a dry metallic edge. I stood at the rail and breathed until the ache went soft. I thought about electricity. You don't have to see it to respect it. Same with paper. Same with truth. When I got home, Emma had left a pie on the porch with a note in block letters that matched mine for the record. I laughed once out loud, a sound that fogged the glass and came right back to me. I made coffee and cut a slice and ate it with my coat still on, because good things don't always wait for ceremony. We had a date for depositions. We had a judge who liked dates and documents more than stories. We had a town that watched like a flock of birds perched on one wire. The house breathed like houses do in winter wood, shrinking air, moving pipes, ticking a quiet metronome. I checked the locks, turned the thermostat down 1 degree to save a little, and set the certified copy in the coat I'd wear to the first depot. It lay there like a spare battery weight where I could feel it. Boring is how we win, Valerie had said. I looked around my kitchen where everything had a place and nodded to nobody. Boring keeps lights on doors square and roofs tight. Boring gets you through a storm. Boring walks into a courtroom with a data book and page and no need to raise its voice. Valerie said we'd spend the next week walking the record, not the rumor. Dates, signatures, stamps, she said, tapping her pencil like a metronome. That's the language the court speaks. I went home and made a list on the yellow pad clinic note. Register of Deeds copies, tax receipts, insurance declarations, any video from Thanksgiving, mortgage payoff, repair receipts with dates. I underlined clinic note twice. If anyone tried to paint me incompetent, I wanted an answer that smelled like ink, not opinion. 2 winters back, I took a short fall off a ladder, changing a porch light. Not far, not dramatic. I landed ugly and sat there watching my breath lift into the cold. At urgent care, the nurse read numbers and said I should think about paperwork. The clinic ran a small legal night with volunteers and a paralegal who'd seen more families fight over houses than casseroles. She talked plain powers of attorney wills and something I hadn't heard before, a transfer on death deed. It doesn't give the house away now, she said. It names who gets it when you die. You still pay your taxes? You still fix your pipes? You still own it. I nodded. That sounded like the way a house should move slow clean, and only when the work is over. I filled the form at a folding table. The paralegal checked spellings printed in block letters, flagged my signature line, and pointed at the notary. I slid my ID across and signed. The notary wrote her name the way people write their name when it matters. The next morning I walked it to the Rock County Register of Deeds, stood under a fluorescent hum, and watched the clerk stamp the upper corner with today's date. She read the instrument number out loud and wrote the book and page. I paid the fee in worn bills and folded the receipt in half, then half again. Outside the door, I felt like a man who had put a cover back on a live wire. I didn't tell Kyle. Fights start when people think a thing is already theirs. Now with a lawsuit living in my kitchen drawer, I went back. The lobby bell rang. The wool scarf clerk recognized me. More certified copies, she asked. Yes, ma'am. 3, I said. She pulled the volume, lined the pages just so, and pressed the raised seal until paper dented into memory. She stapled a ribbon through the corner and slid them back like a dealer who wanted me to win. I read the instrument number out loud and she corrected one digit without smiling. Good. I thanked her. 1 copy went to Valerie. 1 I slid into my coat. 1 I put in the small safe at the credit union next to a photograph of Patty in a lunchroom hairnet, smiling at a camera like she trusted the world. The clinic printed a letter that said what I needed, said I was alert and oriented, not on any medication that changed my thinking, managing my own affairs. The nurse underlined the date of the exam and initialed it. You doing okay, Mr. Grady, she asked. I'm walking on the record, I said. She didn't know what that meant, but she handed me the paper, like you hand a man his coat when the wind comes up. Hazel's Diner sat between those errands like a warm pocket. I took a counter seat, opened the binder I'd started, and added tabs. Title, taxes, insurance, repairs, clinic, video correspondence. I slid a copy of the mortgage payoff behind title right after the certified TOD deed. Under repairs, I stacked receipts in order: roof shingles in Uro 9, water heater 13, a new breaker in 19. I put a neon flag on the notary's name. I wrote the instrument number for the TOD on the inside cover until it lived in my hand. Book and page got their own line. Coffee steamed up into my face and made the winter feel like a thing I could reason with. Pastor Jim texted a link to the Thanksgiving clip. Valerie and I watched it on our office monitor with cheap headphones that squeezed our ears. It was the kind of video that tells the truth by accident. Plastic forks rattle kids' shoes. Scuff a football announcer swims under the noise. My own voice floats in and out as I carve turkey. You'll have your turn with the place one day. There's no audience hush, no handshake, no I promise, no terms. It's a sentence to keep mashed potatoes moving. We wrote a timestamp and a line ambient ambiguous. No clear promise. Valerie slid it into the binder behind video, like slipping a card into a deck at the right place. Phone records came next. I printed a log that showed I didn't text Kyle after the lawsuit. Bank statements showed nothing moving between us but a $50 I gave him for gas in June. Insurance declarations proved I was the named insured paying premiums from my account. Tax receipts with dates and amounts sat like railroad ties. None of it was exciting. All of it was solid. Valerie set a prep in her conference room. Answer short, she said. Don't teach. Don't argue. If you don't recall, you say, I don't recall at this time. If you know, you show your paper. She role-played keen. Isn't it true you promised the house? No, I said. Isn't it true you intend to give it to your son? No, I said. Where will the house go when you die? To Emma by recorded instrument, I said, and gave the number. She raised a hand. Too much. To Emma. It's recorded. Let me invite the details. I nodded. She smiled once, small and tired. We win when we're dull. I took the binder home and built a twin set for my own comfort, tab for tab. I put a pencil in the ring so it would never pretend this was finished. Emma called and said her guidance counselor thought she could pull scholarship money if she kept her grades. I told her there was a pie plate at my sink with her name on it. She laughed like wind chimes. Across the street, the Gleasons watched me scrape the walk and muttered to each other under breath. Pastor waved. Mrs. Ortiz carried in groceries and didn't meet my eyes. Rumor works fast in a town because it rides warm cars. Paper works slow but gets the right address. Valerie sent initial disclosures by email. I printed the cover sheet and read the list out loud at the table. Exhibit A, certified TOD deed. Exhibit B, tax receipts. Exhibit C, insurance declarations. Exhibit D, Thanksgiving video clip. Exhibit E, clinic letter. Exhibit F, mortgage payoff. Exhibit G, photos of the house through the years with dates written on the back. I added optional repair receipts, utility bills in my name. We're not flooding them, she'd said. We're building a spine. At night, I walked the house like a lineman walking a line after ice, slow listening, touching, making sure what should hum hums, what should be silent is silent. My hands know the difference between a live wire and a dead one without seeing it. The same hands know when a promise is just air. The house spoke its winter sounds, ducks water in the pipes, the old refrigerator's knock. I memorized the date the TOD was recorded, the notary's name, the clerk's first initial, the book and page the statute citation Valerie had scribbled for me on a scrap. If nerves woke me at 2, I counted breaths in 4s and ran the instrument number like a prayer I believed, because I'd seen it stamped. By the end of the week, the binder had weight. I could have used it to hold a door open in a wind. On the spine, I printed Grady v. Grady Defense, with a label maker Emma found under a drawer. When I slid it into my coat the next morning, it pressed into my ribs like a second wallet. I locked the door, checked the latch, and stood a second on the porch, listening to the low Midwest winter. The depositions were set. The judge liked dates more than speeches. We were ready to be dull in a room that mistakes noise for truth. We held Kyle's deposition at Keene's office, 3rd floor, over a bank, the kind of carpet that eats footsteps. The conference room smelled like coffee and dry erase marker. A court reporter set her machine on the short end of the table and tested the mic with a soft check. Keene took the head of the table. Valerie sat to my left, legal pad, square to the grain pen capped. Kyle came in 10 minutes late, jacket unbuttoned, eyes on his phone, like it was a shield. The reporter raised her hand, swore him in. He said, I do, like he was ordering lunch. Keene started with biography to warm him up. Kyle relaxed into it. When Valerie took her turn, she smiled like a neighbor. Mr. Grady, she said, using his last name. The way a teacher does, tell me the exact words my client used at Thanksgiving. I promise you the house, Kyle said. Valerie kept the smile. Those exact words. Yes. Who else heard those exact words? The Gleasons, Mrs. Ortiz, everyone. Which Thanksgiving? He blinked. Last year. Valerie slid a paper across. This clip is from last year. We'll mark it Exhibit 4. Do you see a timestamp? He leaned in. Yeah. Play the first 30 seconds, Valerie said to the tech. Plastic forks, football laughter, my voice carving through. You'll have your turn with the place one day, not a hush, no handshake, no oath, just casserole. Valerie, do you hear the words you testified to? Kyle stared at the table. He said it before the video. Before this clip starts. Yeah. Do you have any recording of that? No. Any text from my client repeating that? No. Any email, letter, napkin, anything in writing memorializing that alleged promise? No. Her pen didn't move. When did you first contact anyone about selling 412 Cedar Street? I don't recall. Phone records show a call to a Mr. Bixler cash buyer the Monday after Thanksgiving. She slid another paper. Is that your number? He looked cornered. That's business, just asking. About a house on Cedar Street. He shifted. We talk inventory. I work in finance. We talk all kinds of deals. Was Ashley with you when you made that call? He paused. No. Did you post anything about the house? No. Valerie pulled a printout from a private Facebook group, screen captured, time-stamped Ashley's caption, potential coming soon. 3-bed, 1-bath on Cedar DM. The date was the same Monday. Keene leaned back, lips flat. Recognize this, Valerie asked. Kyle swallowed. Ashley runs social. I didn't tell her to post that. Did you ask her to take it down? I don't recall. Today you want title to 412 Cedar Street based on an alleged promise at Thanksgiving, but prior to any paper transfer, you contacted a buyer and floated a post calling it coming soon. That's fair. I wouldn't put it like that. How would you put it? He stared at the court reporter's hands. I was getting ready. Valerie's smile didn't change. For something you didn't own. We broke for 10 minutes. In the hallway, I studied a framed photo of a sailboat. I've never liked water you can't see the bottom of. Ashley's deposition ran after lunch. She wore a jacket the color of cream and kept touching her hair when she paused. The reporter swore her in. Valerie stayed sunny. You manage social media, Mrs. Grady. I do. You posted about a coming soon on Cedar Street the Monday after Thanksgiving. I did. Where did you get the idea there would be a coming soon? My husband said his dad promised the house. Did you hear the promise? I was filming. So you didn't hear it. I heard the vibe. Valerie nodded like she'd expected that answer all morning. Did you take any steps to list the property with a licensed agent? I posted for interest. You posted for interest about a property you didn't own. Well, it's a family thing. Did my client ever tell you he promised the house to your husband? No, he doesn't talk to me much. Did you consider that a recorded owner still owns the property until he signs over title or dies? Keene objected. Calls for a legal conclusion. Sustained, Valerie said with a small smile like she'd bumped a rail to hear the sound. No further questions right now. The Gleasons came 2 days later, depositions in Valerie's office because it was closer to their porch. Dale wore his Packers cap. Marlene wore a sweater with pine trees stitched across the chest. The reporter swore them in. Dale's hands were clean the way a man's are when he's nervous. Valerie kept her voice light. Mr. Gleason, how far were you from Mr. Grady when you heard him speak at Thanksgiving? Across the table, maybe 8 feet. Any music? Just the TV. Had you had anything to drink? 1 beer. Mrs. Gleason, how about you? She smiled, trying to look harmless. Just mulled wine, 3 sips. Valerie clicked her pen once. What exact words did you hear from Mr. Grady? I promise you the house, Dale said. Exact. He hesitated, something like that. Mrs. Gleason. Something like, you'll have your turn, which is a promise, right? Valerie didn't answer that. She slid a still frame from the church video, the angle showing the layout. Would you agree you were here? Mr. Gleason and Mr. Grady was carving turkey. Looks right. Do you remember a child dropping a roll at the same time? He laughed. I remember that kid. Butter everywhere. Valerie turned to Marlene. Do you recall Mr. Grady shaking hands with his son or writing anything down after the sentence you heard? No. Do you recall him saying the words, I promise? Silence. Marlene watched her husband. Not those words, but we all knew what he meant. Valerie's pencil found the margin and made a small, neat check mark. No further questions. When the door closed behind them, Valerie let out the breath everyone had been holding. She flipped to a clean page and wrote 3 words, ambiguous, noisy hearsay. Keene will push hard on sentiment, she said. We'll ride the record. I nodded. Boring. Boring, she said, and the word had weight. We scheduled my deposition last. Valerie warned me Keene will try to make you mad. I told her anger eats attention. We went in at 9 on a Thursday. The reporter swore me in, and I felt the oath settle onto my shoulders like a tool belt. Keene's jaw worked like he was chewing a problem. Mr. Grady, he said, isn't it true you promised your son the house at Thanksgiving? No. Isn't it true you intend to give him the house? No. Where will the house go when you die? To my granddaughter. Why? Because I recorded a transfer on death deed. What's the instrument number? I gave it. He blinked. Isn't it true you executed that document to keep your son from his inheritance? No. What was your intent? To keep peace while I'm alive and make transfer clear when I'm dead. Did you tell your son about the deed? No. Why not? Because I still own my house. Because fights start when people think a thing is already theirs. He tried to climb into my head from every angle. I stayed with paper. Every time he asked me to summarize a feeling, I pointed to a date. Every time he offered me a story, I gave him an exhibit. After 2 hours, he gave up and asked for a break. On the sidewalk outside Valerie's building, the wind found the seam of my collar. She rubbed her hands together and looked down Main Street like she could see the courthouse through brick. They'll bring the neighbors, she said. They'll play the video and hope the judge hears a promise under the noise. We'll bring the custodian from the register to authenticate certified copies. We'll lay the book and page in the record slow as fence posts. Do I need to say anything else? I asked. Only what's asked, she said. And the judge may ask you one question. Mr. Grady, do you know what a promise is? You'll say yes, and you will not blink. At Hazel's, I ordered meatloaf and ate half. Emma called and asked if she could borrow my old stapler for a project. I told her to check the drawer by the calendar with Packers preseason circled in Patty's hand. She laughed. You and your dates, she said. They stay put, I said. That's something. That night I walked the rooms with the binder under my arm. The house made its winter music. I stood in the kitchen where we'd measured Emma's height with pencil marks and thought about words that travel farther than the mouse that said them. You'll have your turn is not a deed. It's a courtesy. It's grace. Court isn't built to hear grace. It hears paper and dates and signatures that hold like a knot. We had a hearing date. The judge liked order. The neighbors would dress nice. Keene would bring a speech. We would bring a spine. I slept like a man who had sandbagged a river before the rain. We got a Tuesday that looked honest, sky-thin as paper air, sharp enough to keep people quiet. I parked 2 blocks from the courthouse and walked slow so my knees wouldn't announce me before I spoke. Emma fell into step beside me, scarf up over her chin, eyes steady. You okay, Grandpa? She said. I like days with rules, I said. This is one. Security was simple. Belt off, binder in a gray bin. The deputy nodded at the blue ribbon on the certified copy like he'd seen 100 of them and still respected the wait. We rode the elevator with 2 men in boots who smelled like work and a woman in a good coat who looked like she'd come to watch someone lose. In the hallway, the radiator hissed and a vending machine hummed the same note it has for 20 years. Courtroom 3 had the light I remember from school cafeterias, benches with grooves worn by winter coats, a wood rail polished by hands that wanted something. Pastor Jim sat near the aisle. The Gleasons took a spot near the front like it was church. Mrs. Ortiz folded her hands on her purse and didn't look left or right. Keene and Kyle were already at counsel table. Ashley set her phone face down as if that made it innocent. Valerie touched my sleeve. We stay boring, she said. We let the room run out of adjectives. The clerk called our case Grady v. Dean Grady, and the HVAC clicked into a low, steady hum that made every word sound deliberate. Judge Ellison came in with a file in one hand and a pen in the other. She sat, looked out over us the way a teacher looks over desks, and said good morning like she meant it. Phone's off, she said. No recording, no commentary from the gallery. Counsel will proceed with openings, then plaintiff's witnesses. Keep it tight. Keene stood. Gray suit, polished shoes, voice like a radio ad. Your Honor, this is a simple matter of equity. A father promised his son a house at Thanksgiving. The son planned his life around that promise. Neighbors heard it. Family counted on it. Equity demands what law may not compel. He looked back at the benches as if he was running for something. We'll show reliance. We'll show intention. We'll show that words mean things. Valerie stayed seated. We'll reserve, she said, and capped her pen. The judge nodded. Proceed. Keene called Dale Gleason first. The bailiff swore him in. Dale took the stand like it surprised him to see it up close. Keene walked him through address relation, the turkey line, the football score. What did you hear Mr. Grady say? Keene asked. Dale looked at his hands. Something like, I promise you the house. Keene smiled as if the words had already hardened into law. Thank you. Valerie stood, one sheet of paper in hand. Mr. Gleason, do you recall a child dropping a dinner roll at the same time? Dale laughed. Butter everywhere. Do you recall Mr. Grady shaking hands with his son or writing anything down? No. Do you recall the exact words, I promise? Dale's eyes slid to Marlene. She lifted her chin an inch. I remember the meaning, he said. Not my question, Valerie said, still friendly. Do you recall those words? No, he said. Thank you, she said and sat. Marlene went next. Pine trees on her sweater lips pressed the way people press them when they think they're helping. Keene got what he wanted. He said Kyle would have his turn with the place. On cross, Valerie only asked 3 questions. Did you hear the words, I promise? No. Did you see any writing? No. Were you drinking mulled wine? 3 sips. Thank you. Mrs. Ortiz walked to the stand like she was late for something she didn't want to do. She talked about being at the far end of the table, about the noise, about the spirit of the day. Keene smiled. We appreciate community, Your Honor. Valerie's cross was 2 questions. How far? 10 feet. How sure? 50-50. The judge wrote something on a yellow legal pad and underlined it hard. Next witness, the judge said. Ashley took the stand like it had better lighting than it did. Keene walked her through her role as recorder of family events. Did you capture the moment I captured the whole meal? And did you in the moment understand that a promise had been made? Everyone did, she said. The word floated up and bumped its head on the ceiling. Valerie stood with a thumb drive between two fingers. Mrs. Grady, may we play the clip? The judge nodded. The monitor warmed. We watched a church hall with a borrowed tablecloth, plastic forks, a TV with a game nobody could hear, my hands carving turkey, my voice saying the sentence that keeps mashed potatoes moving. You'll have your turn with the place one day. No hush, no contract, just courtesy shaped like a sentence. Mrs. Grady, Valerie said, do you hear the words, I promise you the house? Ashley blinked. It's the same thing. Do you hear the words no? Thank you. Keene put Kyle on the stand. He told a story that sounded rehearsed until it tripped over its own shoes. He spoke about childhood, about mowing the lawn, about painting trim one summer, like a soldier telling war stories. He said he relied on my promise. He said he turned down a rental because of it. Valerie asked for a lease application. He didn't have one. She asked for a text where I repeated the promise. He didn't have one. She asked about the call to Bixler on the Monday after Thanksgiving. He called it networking. She held up Ashley's coming soon post. He called it getting ready. The judge wrote another hard underline. When it was my turn, Valerie kept it tight. Do you pay the taxes on 412 Cedar? Yes. Are you the named insured? Yes. Did you promise your son title? No. What did you say at Thanksgiving? I said he'd have his turn one day. Did you execute any document transferring present title to your son? No. Do you understand the difference between courtesy and contract? Keene objected, argumentative, and the judge said, sustained with no heat. Keene stood close enough to smell his aftershave. Mr. Grady, you used the words your turn. Isn't that a promise? No, I said. It's a courtesy. Did you intend your son to rely on it? No. Did you hide your intentions from him? I recorded my intentions, I said. Keene looked at the judge like I'd misbehaved. The judge looked at her pad and waited. After lunch, the judge set her pen down and spoke to the room. Sentiment is not sufficient. This court will require a clear ownership path. Counsel, if there are recordings, we've played them. If there are writings, produce them. I will hear from the plaintiff on any legal theory beyond equitable estoppel. Then I will hear from the defense. Keene talked about reliance until the word got thin. He talked about family, about expectations, about the American way. He asked the court to impose a constructive trust. The judge asked, on what present interest? He said, on the father's equitable obligation. She wrote something and did not look up. Valerie stood without clearing her throat. Your Honor, ownership lives in records. We will call one witness the custodian of records from the Register of Deeds. She tapped her pencil once. We will authenticate certified copies reflecting the present owner and the instrument that governs disposition upon death. We will also offer tax receipts and insurance declarations to show control and risk are where the law says they are. Proceed, the judge said. The bailiff opened the side door. A woman in a wool blazer came in carrying a thin stack bound with a clip big enough to fix a fence. She took the stand, raised her right hand, and swore the oath like she'd done it enough times to know exactly where to put her eyes. Valerie started in the slow voice you use when you build a fence straight. State your name and your position. Caroline Meyer, custodian of records, Rock County Register of Deeds. What are your duties? Maintain and authenticate land records. Index instruments. Issue certified copies. Do you recognize Exhibit A? Yes. What is it? A certified copy of a transfer on death deed, recorded by Thomas Grady on date, instrument, number, book, and page numbers. How do you know this? The seal, the signature, and because I issued it. The clerk shifted. A bench creaked. The room went very quiet, the way a field goes quiet when weather changes 40 miles away. Keene looked down at his notes like the answer might be in the margins. Kyle chewed his lip. Emma's hands were folded so tight her knuckles had gone light. Valerie said, we'll publish to the court in a moment, Your Honor. The judge nodded. Let's make a clean record, she said. Read me the instrument number and then read the grantee beneficiary name. I felt the weight of the ribboned copy in my coat pocket warm from my side and kept my eyes on the seal. The room had run out of adjectives. It had run out of vibe. What it had left was a number that wouldn't blink. The custodian cleared her throat and read the number like she was measuring twice. Instrument number, she said, then gave the string slow. Book and page, another pair of numbers. Grantee beneficiary, Emma Grady. The air in courtroom 3 cooled a notch like a field before weather. Valerie didn't look at me. She didn't need to. Your Honor, exhibit a certified copy of the transfer on death deed offered. Keene stared at his pad as if an objection might jump out. It didn't, admitted Judge Ellison said. The clerk's stamp thumped once clean. Valerie kept digging the same straight post hole. Ms. Meyer, what is the recording date Meyer read it? Is that date 2 years before the Thanksgiving at issue it is? Under Wisconsin law, does a transfer on death deed give any present interest to the beneficiary number title remains with the grantor during life? Does your office show any recorded conveyance of 412 Cedar Street to the plaintiff, Kyle Grady? It does not. Nothing further, Valerie said, sitting like a carpenter who knows the last screw is flush. Keene stood and tried to fight the paper. Ms. Meyer, could a promise override a recorded instrument? Not in our office, she said. The judge lifted her pen. Counsel, she testifies to records, not law. Keene colored and sat. Valerie lifted another sheet. Exhibit B, tax receipts 5 years. Exhibit C, insurance declarations. Exhibit D, photo log with dates. The judge glanced at Keene. Objection, no, admitted. Judge Ellison folded her hands. I have witnesses who describe a noisy holiday, a video that is ambiguous, and a recorded instrument executed long before the remarks. Plaintiff pleads estoppel, promise, reliance, injustice. Counsel, tell me the present interest your client holds. Keene opened his mouth and found air. He relied. On what present interest? The judge asked again, tapping her pad once. Keene looked at Kyle, who had the look of a man hearing his ladder kick back from the wall. We asked for a constructive trust, he tried. On what? The judge said. Silence. Emma's hand found my sleeve in the second row. She didn't squeeze. Defense, the judge said. Valerie rose. Title sits where book and page say it sits. The plaintiff offered no writing, no present conveyance, and a video that does not say what counsel claimed. Even if a promise had been made which the court cannot find, it would not divest present title or defeat a recorded transfer on death designation. We asked for dismissal with prejudice costs to defendant. The judge looked down, then out at a town that had dressed for a hearing. Complaint dismissed with prejudice, she said. Costs taxed to the plaintiff. Plaintiff is cautioned that filings of this character may invite sanctions. She turned to Kyle. You cannot spend what isn't yours. Sound changed shape. Not cheering, just shoulders, dropping coats, whispering on benches, paper finding folders. Pastor Jim breathed out like a blessing you could barely hear. The Gleasons stared at their hands. Mrs. Ortiz shut her eyes and opened them, like something fragile had been set back on a shelf. Kyle's color drained the way a man pales when he brushes a live wire and feels the hum in his teeth. Pale as a ghost. Ashley reached for his sleeve and missed. Keene stacked his papers on the wrong side of his case and corrected himself sharply. The judge wasn't done. Mr. Grady, she said, meaning my son, stand. He did. This court is a place where words wear shoes. They walk only as far as the record lets them. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Good. We were dismissed. The clerk called the next case in the same voice, which is how you know the system is bigger than any story. I waited for the bench in front of me to clear, then stood. Valerie packed without hurry and slid the certified copies back to me. These go home with you, she said. Keep them dry. In the hallway, the radiator hissed the same note as the vending machine. The deputy nodded once, the way men do when a job is squared. Pastor Jim squeezed my shoulder. Truth travels slow, he said. It still travels. The Gleasons found me by the water fountain. Dale cleared his throat. We heard what we wanted, he said. We're sorry. Marlene looked at her gloves. We should have kept quiet. Let it be over, I said. Kyle stood under a hallway clock waiting for time to back up. He didn't come near me. He looked at Emma and then away as if whatever he had come to get had finally said its real name. Outside, winter light hit the steps and made the stone look clean. Emma walked close enough that our coats touched. So that's it, she said. That's it, I said. A number read into a room. She smiled under the scarf. I liked the part about words wearing shoes. Me too, I said. We drove Cedar Street slow. The house waited the way houses wait, no hurry, no sulk. I unlocked the door and set the certified copies on the table. The hinges didn't squeak. The furnace took a breath and let it out steady. I poured coffee and held the mug with both hands the way you hold something you worked for. I stood at the sink and watched snow start in the alley. It came down neat like a clerk reading back numbers. I thought about courtesy and contract, about how good manners get mistaken for deeds, about the difference between a story and a record. Court doesn't love you. It doesn't hate you. It reads you. When the cup was empty, I put the certified copy in the small fireproof box with the mortgage payoff and a photo from the year we framed the kitchen. I shut the lid and turned the key. The click felt like a sentence with a period on it. The day after court felt like a snow day without the noise. I woke before the light, put coffee on, and set the binder in the middle of the table. The certified copies went back in their plastic sleeve. I wrote the date and the words "case dismissed with prejudice" on the yellow pad. I underlined it once. A man doesn't need 3 lines when one will do. Mail came after 10. The lid clacked. I brought in a brown envelope from the clerk's office and a flyer for furnace tune-ups. Inside the envelope, the judgment stamped with a short line about costs taxed to the plaintiff. The stamp made the room feel square. I slid it behind the TOD deed and closed the rings with a click that sounded finished. Around noon, the Gleasons knocked with a casserole that steamed like a winter breath. Dale cleared his throat. "We should have kept quiet," he said, hat in his hands. Marlene stared at her gloves. I set the dish down and said, "We're neighbors. It'll help if we start acting like it." We sat 10 minutes talking Packers and salt prices. They left lighter than they came. The kitchen smelled like noodles and relief. Emma arrived after school, placed her backpack on the chair. I've tightened 100 times and leaned on her elbows like she used to when she couldn't reach. "You named me on that paper," she said. "I did," I said. "You didn't tell me. You didn't need the weight yet." She looked at the binder like it might hum. "What do I do with it?" "Nothing while I'm alive," I said. "Visit. Learn how the furnace filter slides. Know where the water shutoff is. When it's your turn, you take care of the place, like it took care of us." She nodded. "Stewardship," she said, slow, like a new tool in her hand. "That's the word," I said. We ate pie cold. She pulled a scholarship flyer from her bag and a draft essay about community service that sounded like she meant it. I fixed 2 commas. She taped the deadline to the fridge with a magnet from the old plant that shut down. Dates matter. Deadlines keep a person honest. Pastor Jim called to say Sunday's homily would be about truth walking slow and showing up dressed like paper. "No names," he said. "No need," I said. Hazel from the diner comped my coffee the next morning and slid the sugar caddy away like a reward. "Saw your name in the court calendar," she said. "Look tidy." "Judge likes tidy," I said. She smiled. "So do I." The clerk at the Register of Deeds saw me come in for a fireproof sleeve and a second ribbon copy. "You collecting?" she asked. "I'm learning not to chase," I said. She pressed the seal the way a farmer pats a good fence post. "Book and page don't move unless you move them," she said. "That's what I like about them." By Thursday, a white envelope came from an address I knew without reading Kyle's. Inside, a receipt for costs paid to the clerk, a line that read, "Regret any inconvenience and nothing else." No apology, no excuse. A number, a check, a settled ledger. I stood by the sink and let that be enough for the day. Later, the phone lit up with a short voicemail. His voice was flat. "Dad, I handled the costs. I'm figuring things out." He didn't ask to come by. I didn't make a plan. Sometimes the best distance is the exact length of a court file. Friday, I replaced the cracked plate on the kitchen switch and oiled the back door again until the hinge gave up its last complaint. Small jobs return a man to ground. I dated the oil bottle with a marker. In the afternoon, I drove Emma to the credit union to open a little savings account under her name. She signed in the serious way people do when they know someone's watching. "You like days with rules," she said. "They don't waste time," I said. She smiled through the glass at the teller and tucked her copy into a folder like she'd grown 2 inches in one errand. On the sidewalk outside the credit union, I saw Kyle across the parking lot standing by his car like a man who can't find the right key. He looked smaller than his coat. He held something in his fist. Emma paused. "Do you want me to wait in the car?" "No," I said. "We'll let the day be what it is." He crossed halfway and stopped, then finished the rest. He opened his hand, the spare key to 412 Cedar I'd given him years back when he was young, and the world seemed to only open. He put it in my palm without touching me. "Here," he said, voice rough. "You won." I looked at the key, not him. "No," I said. "The record won." He nodded once, as if that answer hurt in a place a doctor can't fix. "Okay," he said and turned away. He didn't look back. Emma and I stood in the quiet that follows a clean cut. That night I sat at the table with the binder open to the last page and wrote a simple list, what I know now that I didn't know then. 1. A table blessing is not a deed. 2. If it matters, write it down. 3. Neighbors mean well, but meaning well is not testimony. 4. Family isn't ownership, it's stewardship. 5. Love without boundaries becomes a rumor that eats your house. I made 2 copies of that list and put one behind the judgment, one on the fridge next to Emma's deadline. When the furnace kicked on, it sounded like a steady thing keeping its promise in a cold county. I slept without counting breaths. Sunday after church, Pastor Jim shook my hand and said nothing more than, "See you Wednesday, same time." The Gleasons waved from the sidewalk with faces that looked like they'd learned to keep their voices for their own kitchen. Mrs. Ortiz left a pie on my porch with a note that read, "We're better neighbors than we were." Weeks will pass now. Snow will blow against the west wall and pile up on the alley fence. I will change a filter, scrape a step, press a seal in my mind when memory gets loud. The binder will live in the cupboard with the good salt and the flashlight. The key Kyle returned will hang on a nail where it won't be mistaken for the right one. And when the phone rings, I'll answer if it's about a broken pipe, a ride, a doctor's appointment. Not the house. That part is closed. If you're listening to this and you're my age or older, or you love someone who has checked your papers, call your county recorder, ask a local attorney one clean question, and get one clean answer. Write down what matters, set boundaries that don't shout. And if this story helped you breathe easier, share it with one person who needs a steady voice. You can subscribe if these plain stories keep you company on hard days. Leave a comment, but keep it kind. Somewhere out there, a hinge needs oil, a filter needs changing, a date needs writing. Do that first.